And here in Nigeria, the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, is planning to use biometric verification numbers, BVN, for taxpayers, but the move has captured widespread criticism from residents. Now, the service has promised this will increase taxpayers' database and boost revenue for the government. And just last month, the firm issued a public notice of its intention to integrate the existing Taxpayers Identification Digit, or PID, into the Nationwide Tax Identification Number, TIN, system with the Joint Tax Board. In order to achieve this, the Revenue Service intends to leverage on taxpayers' BVN. On this story, CEO Alpha African Advisory Sanyade Okoli joins me in the studio. It's good to have you, and good afternoon.
Afternoon, Lee. All
right, the use of BVN to taxpayers, what are the prospects here on revenue generation?
Well, you can definitely see that from widening the tax net. It gives, if the LIRS has access to BVNs, then one would think that it can, in some ways, monitor flows into different people's bank accounts. And so, it makes it harder for individuals and companies to say that they've done very little business if significant cash flows are moving in and out of their bank accounts. So I think that is going to be one big advantage.
Indeed, monitoring, as it were, in the shadows.
Yes.
Let's look at leveraging on taxpayers' BVN. Is this a foolproof plan to overcome tax defaulters, you think, despite the advantages you just gave?
I think it's fair to say globally there's nothing that is completely fail-proof. But what it does do, as I said, it makes it harder for taxpayers to essentially hide income. It just makes that a lot more difficult.
But in such a circumstance, wouldn't there be a need for effective legislation as to the, how right it is to have this in place in the first place by the Lagos State government?
Yes,
there's some hurdles they will have to go through.
There's only two key issues.
Yeah.
One is the legal basis on which LIRS can insist on taxpayers providing it with their BVNs.
Yes.
You're absolutely right, because BVN is really under the purview of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Indeed.
And ordinarily, approvals are required from CBN for anybody to access BVNs, because understandably it's seen very much as sensitive information.
Indeed.
So that legal hurdle will need to be scaled. You're absolutely right.
Very good. Now, there is concern on the need to protect the privacy of taxpayers in view of the BVN suggestion. How do you see this playing out?
Yes, as I said, that's the second issue. People are concerned about the security because, to their minds, access to BVN essentially provides access to their, certainly bank account details and potentially bank accounts. I'll give you, for example, that just yesterday, one of the Nigerian banks sent emails to customers saying that you need to ensure that you update the data that they hold on you. Because if, for example, you had an old telephone number, after a certain period of time, the telecoms companies transfer it to new individuals. So it could be that new individuals have your telephone number, which is linked to your bank account, which can be used for banking transactions, and then also access to your BVN, which obviously creates a significant security risk.
Yeah, talking about security risk, you can't help but think about the, the emergence of hackers and the Facebook imbroglio with people's data being taken, harvested, and God knows what's been done with it. So to a large extent, that concern is justified, as it were.
Yes.
All right. The multiple taxation issues still lingering. What are the effects on entrepreneurship? We could start with your experience as well.
Well, to be able to answer your question effectively, I need to depersonalize it. Okay. I think with this whole issue of the BVNs and coming together and the integration of tax numbers, etc., what it does do, though, is forces entrepreneurs to be a lot tidier with their bookkeeping and, just separation of personal life and business, because right now a lot of people would use a business account for personal costs, etc., to ensure that you don't have some of these multiple taxation issues. They're going to have to be a lot more disciplined in terms of the quality of record keeping. So
streamlining those records is equally very important.
It was always important, to be honest, because I think even to be able to run your business effectively, record keeping is important, but it becomes even more important if you want to ensure that you don't suffer more tax than you need to.
Well, let's say the investment climate itself with this issue of multiple taxation, irrespective of the presence of BVN, what are your thoughts there?
On multiple taxation?
Yes.
Well, it's never desirous. You know, you talk about multiple taxation. My own pet bugbear is actually minimum taxation, which means that a company makes a loss and they still have to pay tax. You know, that makes it really difficult to be able to operate a business, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, and how difficult things have been. And of course, this is not, as an environment, you know, where people have to really work hard to generate, you know, good, clean returns. Yeah. And if you're having to pay more tax than is really seen as fair and just, then it's a real disincentive for business owners. Indeed.
Now, it's been argued that the Lagos Internal Revenue Service does not actually require BVN to sanitize tax collection and administration. What are your thoughts there? You know, earlier you mentioned the issue of, you know, security threats, data hacks and stuff like that, but you know, do we actually need this?
You know, is it a need to have? I can see the argument that no. Yeah. But I can see that in the Lagos Inland Revenue Services shoes, that for them, it just gives them access to information. And as I said earlier, it makes it harder for people to say, no, I haven't earned certain income, because they see money coming in and going out.
So definitely, you know, there's still going to be a lot of argument towards that, because I envisage public response to this might not be positive.
Of course. You know, they've come up with their notice. As you said, there's been widespread criticism. Yeah. And what I would expect from both sides is really the public trying to understand what the tax man is trying to achieve. Yeah. The taxman understanding the concerns and trying to work to some solution that mitigates the risks from both sides.
Indeed. And it's one thing to have all these taxes, but are we actually seeing, you know, today that the proceeds of these taxes are actually being used to provide just basic infrastructure, as it were?
It will always be, well, certainly at this stage, it will be difficult to say, because, you know, if you think about it, from a federal budget standpoint, we still have a budget deficit of roughly about 2 trillion naira. So who's to say whether it's my tax money that paid for, you know, capital expenditure, or it's the borrowed money that paid for the expenditure? What we do know is that because we have a deficit, it means that we're not earning enough to meet the costs that we're incurring. And even the CapEx budget is far less than what we require for us to be able to put in the infrastructure that is necessary.
Indeed, very good. Sanyade Okoli, many thanks for your thoughts on the new initiative on BVN by the Lagos State government to take tax, as it were, to the highest level. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Neil.
All right.